The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Well, guys, I tried to warn you that things were not looking good over here in Besbris land, and I've cranked up my volume to maximum power. And I've cranked up my enthusiasm over here to maximum power. But it's rough go. I don't know if anybody heard me on satellite radio yesterday. It really was pretty awful. This is clear my throat at the beginning of a podcast. That's good. Right? That's good radio. This is Fantasy NBA Today. I am Dan Besbris, and thank the good Lord, Neil Rochlani is here to pick up the pieces for me. Because as I joked on radio yesterday, Neil, puberty is hard.
Dan, don't worry. These things seem difficult, but you'll get through it.
I'm finding hair in all sorts of new and horrifying places. As I said to Neil before we came on air, and I'm betting that like 80% of you are just going to tune out immediately because like I can't listen to this. It sounds like he's dying. I've had illnesses where I've felt worse, but I legitimately can't remember an illness where I've sounded worse than this one. This is the one, like, Neil, if you're trying to skip out on school as a kid or work as an adult, this is the illness that you want because you literally can't sound any more god-awful with a regular old-fashioned cold than I do right now. As long as I don't get excited, as long as I can do the whole podcast in like a nice, calm NPR. What was the old SNL skit where they did the sweaty balls routine?
Yes. I don't know more than that, but that was my takeaway.
Yeah.
You could just do it very low and slow, and you'll be fine.
It's going to be a weird juxtaposition when you actually have energy and you're like, I'm really excited about this particular wager. And I come back at you and I'm like, yes, Neil, that sounds wonderful. That's a marvelous thought. What I had to say to a friend of mine yesterday was, look, you have to believe me. I feel really enthused by what you're telling me right now. I just can't express it. So like, look at my eyebrows. And if they're up, that means that I'm really excited about it. This is Fantasy NBA Today. I mentioned that already. At Dan Besbris, at Ball with Neil on the Twitter. It's a hoop ball presentation. It's also a Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee presentation at HI Kona Coffee on Twitter. Maybe I should let you do this read since I sound sad when I'm talking about it, and I'm definitely not sad. I'm very excited about Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee. Neil, where else can people find it?
They can find their delicious products at hawaiianisles.com or on Amazon.
Beautiful. So here's a plan for today.
Yeah.
Playoff series prices and the continuation of our season win totals and review analysis. What can we take away from it? What can we use going forward? The Western Conference is coming up on today's podcast. We did Eastern Conference last week. If you want to go check that one out. That was Tuesday's show, so that was April the 16th. See, I can still do math even when I have this weird cold. That was 7. I minused, as the kids say, I minused 7 from 23, and that's how I got back to last week's date. So, Neil, you said you found a series price for the Boston-Milwaukee series. I haven't seen anything on the standard betting sites, but what are some of the numbers that you've seen bounce across so far?
Yeah, well, I saw it open a little bit higher, but right now I'm seeing plus 245 for Boston and minus 300 for Milwaukee.
Any initial thoughts on that guy?
I mean, I would have to, if I had to pick one, it'd be Boston. But I don't know. I'm probably going to hold off on this one because I don't believe. I believe it's Milwaukee's going to roll in this one, and so that's why. But I think the price is good for Boston on terms of the value basis.
Yeah, it's one of those weird ones where I'm looking at this first game of the series, and you just sort of think, okay, if I want to bet Milwaukee, how confident do I feel in game one? That's the direction I'm actually looking with this one. If you think the Celtics could come in and just kind of surprise them one time, and then maybe Milwaukee gets settled in and wins, 4 of the next 5 or something like that, then obviously you'd want to wait if the Celtics take home court away from Milwaukee, the price would get a lot better. If you think Milwaukee wins game 1, I think they probably also win game 2. I actually feel pretty good about Milwaukee winning game 2 almost regardless of what happens in game 1. So I think you definitely want to bet Milwaukee before game 2. The question is, do you want to bet them now or after game 1? So you're more on the, let's wait and see. Maybe the Celtics can steal one, and you could even potentially give yourself a chance to create a weird middle on this series, although I don't know how far exactly it would shift. Let's wait and see. I haven't seen the number at the easy-to-find betting locales yet, but I'm guessing it's not going to be too far from the stuff that you've seen. Remaining series going right now, first-round series, there are still 2 series where the odds are sitting anywhere under 1,000 on either side. Philly is minus 100,000, so are the Raptors, so are the Warriors, so are the Rockets, despite, by the way, Neil, that sounded good, didn't it? I got to give credit to the Utah Jazz. You don't actually see a lot of teams fall down 3-0 and then actually fight to winning a game. A lot of times you'll see teams kind of roll over, understanding that they're basically dead in the water. That's got to be, I think that's like a feather in the cap of Quinn Snyder, because clearly his team is overmatched and they fought to get a win in this series. That's pretty good for Utah, but from a gambling perspective, it doesn't change much.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought they were going to pull off to win game 4. I just think they're just too well coached and too talented and have too much pride, I thought, just to not at least fight. And I think Houston knows it's over. Not that they were relaxing a little bit, but I think when you're up 3-0, it's hard to get as motivated when you're down like 0-3. Like you said, you could fold, but when you have a team that's had really high expectations, I thought they might have one of the better records in the West this year. They actually got to 50 wins. So I'm not surprised they fought and won a game there.
What do you think about the 2 remaining series that are, I don't say competitive, because Portland has looked like the significantly better team. It's funny, by the way, that Portland is up 3-1 as a minus 800 favorite, and Houston is up 3-1, and Golden State is up 3-1, and Philly's up 3-1, and Toronto's up 3-1. Those teams are up minus 100,000, and Portland is minus 800. That's a pretty strong rebuke of what the Blazers have done so far compared to the other teams that are up big in a series. That's pretty crazy, actually, when you think about it in those terms. All of those teams are up by 2 games going into game 6, 5. Remember I said I could do math? It turns out I can't. But yet Portland is somehow 99,200 less. I mean, that seems insane, but I guess people still have a lot of faith in Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing the odds. Maybe I'm doing this wrong, but it's like 85% for Portland, something around there to win, while the other ones are more like 95% to 99%. I just think it's, they came into the series pretty much a coin flip. OKC was a slight favorite. I think people still believe that OKC could do something here. I mean, I think if you're betting OKC, it's probably better to go with this line than to go money line each game. Wouldn't it be, to parlay? I think I don't know how that works in terms of the numbers, but plus 594 seems pretty good. And from that perspective, I'm not going to bet this one, but if I had to, I think OKC is not completely out of it, though. I think they have a shot to come back.
They're in a tough spot, to be sure. Shot is there, but it's an awfully tough spot. The series that's obviously completely undecided is Denver-San Antonio. That series is tied 2-2. They've got a game coming up tonight. Denver, a minus 200 favorite. This is pretty close to where the series opened. I said I kind of liked Denver as a weird, not that strong, not that chalky favorite, despite being the 2 seed and over the course of the year showing that they were the far better team than the Spurs. But this has been a pretty good battle. The team's basically trading off. Can Denver get over the hump? Is this a time to take a shot with San Antonio? I mean, to me, this is actually, almost the exact same deal. Denver has to win their home games, which is all they had to do when the series started. And they certainly looked better in Game 4, moving Will Barton out of the starting lineup. You've got to think San Antonio comes up with some sort of counterpunch, but they also need to be able to make some three-pointers. I am honestly not sure how this series shakes out, but I still do lean to the Denver side.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not sure how it shakes out either. But I think Denver, like you said, when the series started, they had to win 4 home games. Now they're down to 2, so that should bode well for them. I think they do have a home court advantage when it comes to crowd and altitude, and I think that they're going to feed off that. I think getting that one win in San Antonio was huge, so I expect them to win this next game, and I think at that point, I think my voice is like morphing into yours. Anyway, if they win that one game, I think they will be set up to win the series. So I don't think the price is good enough on Denver. I bought them at 101 last week when they were down 0-1, and I've just held on to it. And I think I'm just going to do that. So I'm not going to do any hedging on it.
Yeah, it's, I think, a good move. Yeah, I think you're suffering from what I'd like to call vocal empathy, where you now hear me like slowly crumping over here. And you're thinking, man, either I need to clear my own throat. Maybe if I clear my throat, it'll help clear Dan's. Yeah, I've been down that road before, and I appreciate your empathy. By the way, that's very kind of you. Let's talk Western Conference win totals, and also an opportunity for me to talk less. We'll just start through the rankings, basically like we did last week, 1 through 15. What we had on that side, and whether or not what do we take away from it. So Golden State, they ended up going under this year, 57-25, the final total for the Warriors. The initial number on Golden State was 62.5. To me, this was one where if they stayed healthy, I figured they would go over. If they didn't, they would go under. And they did. Steph Curry was obviously the big one. When he's out, they're basically a 500 team, and then they don't care that much about home court advantage, so they're not going to try to pile up wins down the stretch. I thought they would stay healthy this year. I got this one wrong, Neil. I thought that Steph was going to be in sort of prove-it mode after I felt like he got slighted in the playoffs last season with all the love kind of going to Kevin Durant, but he suffered an annoying injury again, and that might have been the difference between getting to the number and not getting to the number. So maybe I should have been more careful, but I just thought we were going to get like 76 games out of Steph this year, and we didn't. So that one's on me. What about you with this guy?
Yeah, I think you're right with your analysis. I went under. I had them at 60 wins only because I thought they would rest a lot more throughout the season and not care at all about the regular season, knowing they had such firepower going into the playoffs. With the addition of Cousins and everything else they do at Golden State. So I didn't think they would push to get the 1 seed if things didn't break out that way, and they would also rest all throughout the season. So
yeah.
that was why I went under.
Yeah, your bet really had a larger margin for error than mine did, which was kind of foolish on my side to say, listen, I need this guy to play 76 or more games. He ended up playing, I think, 68 or 69 during the regular season this year. And I mean, they're a monster when Steph is healthy, and they're just not when he's out. And you're right; they're going to rest everybody. KD's going to get rest. Draymond is going to get rest. Klay Thompson is sort of the one guy who doesn't feel like he needs it, but sometimes he gets a little bit of rest. They're going to rest Iguodala. There are all these things that could have turned that wager, and I took the weird, like, gotta thread the needle side, and that was stupid on my part. And looking back on it, it was one of my smallest of the year. I think it was like a confidence of 1 wager, but still the wrong side. Clearly, I had the wrong side in that one, and almost immediately I knew that was the case. Denver, 54 wins this year. Their number was 47.5. I thought this was actually a pretty safe over bet. I didn't know they were going to go over by 6.5 wins. That was a really easy one, as it turned out. But they got to 46 last year with a bunch of pieces that were all kind of just gelling and coming together. It seemed to me that getting 2 extra wins this year was not going to be a stretch for this Nuggets team. I figured, you wouldn't see Paul Millsap miss 3 months. What did he miss instead? Like 6 weeks? So he still missed a bunch of time. But Jokic was getting better. Jamal Murray was getting better. They ended up with some bench players that contributed that I didn't even see coming. This one turned out to be even easier than I expected, but it was one that I liked to begin with. Where were you on the Nuggets?
Yeah, I was on the over, not as confident as you. I had them barely over in my prediction. I thought they would really push to make the playoffs. I know they just missed out last year, and I know
Right.
they're a very good team. And I thought, to get in the playoffs in the Western Conference, you need to get close to 50 wins, it seems, these days. So I thought they would get very close to that. I am at 48, so just a half game over. I wasn't sure about how the Western Conference is just so competitive, so I wasn't sure how much they would improve, but I thought they would, and they would get just slightly over. So I was less bullish, but still, I guess, on the right side.
You had a good point with pushing to make the playoffs after missing, and they basically what amounted to almost a play-in game last year. They had the Wolves on the last day of the regular season. That's another good point in favor of the Nuggets. Portland, I whiffed. I whiffed hard on this one. I thought they were going to suffer from stagnation syndrome this year, where just not enough changed, and their salary cap situation was so goofy and hamstrung that they couldn't really bring in any extra pieces. But Yusuf Nurkic went bonkers, and I really feel like he woke him up. Like he gave him a certain fire at the beginning of the year, where then the guards were able to channel a measure of rage. They felt like they had a chance again, which is what kind of kills teams that don't make those moves, teams that stagnate. They feel, we were okay last year. We made no moves. What's the point even of going hard this year? And they went hard, man. They went way over, and I biffed it. So that's another L. That's another L over here on Besbris land. Did you have them going over or under?
I had them going over.
Just Neil barely. Crushing it.
Yeah, so far so good. Yeah, barely. This is one of my lowest confidence ones. So I did not know. I thought this could go either way. I thought either they were going to rebound. I really believe in Dame's leadership and also Stotts. And I thought they were, after that, just drubbing against New Orleans in the playoffs. Obviously, their outlook did not look good. Golden State looks like they were going to cakewalk in. So maybe you do think, why try? But I just thought there's too much professionalism and heart in this team not to at least play really hard and try to figure it out. And so and then they had continuity. They had Nurkic coming in, which I thought was going to help it just a bit. So I went barely over, but it got there.
It certainly did. What did you have with Houston? I'll let you start the next one. What did you have with the Rockets?
Oh, yeah, sure. Houston, all right. This is when I should have believed in you, Dan. You told me this is one of your easier picks because I believe, is that what you said? Because you expected a regression? I went over, so I did lose this one. I'm too embarrassed to say that I actually thought Melo might help them.
Oh man, I wish I had.
That was so foolish because here I don't think Morey's an idiot, and I don't think D'Antoni's an idiot. So why would these guys bring on him on unless it was just really just to appease Chris Paul? I don't understand.
I wish they had let him stick around longer. This would have been an even easier under. They were so hot. Yeah. They were so hot down the stretch. They almost screwed up my damn under bet on these guys. They ended up getting to 53. Their total was 54.5. So they got to within 2 wins. And I mean, in January, it looked like they were going to be in the high 40s at best, maybe mid 40s. To me, they just had too many subtractions and addition by subtraction on the Melo side. To lose Ariza and Bahamute. To gain Carmelo Anthony. I thought that was 3 demerits on this team. I also figured you'd see Chris Paul missing time again, which was unfortunate because I should practice what I preach, really. I wrote my over or my under wager explanation with that they're going to be rested and need games, and obviously that wasn't the case for James Harden. And then I ended up with Chris Paul on all my fantasy teams. So just like an idiot, I'm sitting on this guy that I knew was going to miss a bunch of time this year. But I felt like they overperformed last year as well. I figured that this is a team realized that they're going to be good in the postseason, and they needed to just get there healthy. And that one ended up being a little bit of a sweat, but it got there, and so I feel okay about that. Utah, we'll bounce back and forth, so I'll start this next one. Utah, the number was 48.5. I had this one going over. This one looked a little bit rough at times. Fortunately, they had a much easier schedule after about early February, a little bit before the All-Star break. Things changed for the Jazz, much like last year. They got better as the season went on. I was a little bit on the public side with this one, I think, taking the over because last season they had that powerhouse finish, and so it felt like almost a given that they would get back to where they were and then exceed that number. But it took some heavy lifting to get there. My over hit, but I don't feel like great about it even looking back. A win's a win, I guess, but I don't know. This one almost felt like the number was pretty right.
Yeah, I was very much a public play on this as well. I thought they were going to be one of the better teams this season in the West because of that strong finish last year, because I thought Donovan Mitchell could take another step forward just because of the organization. So I thought they would get to about 52 wins. So I was wrong on that, but they did go over by, I guess, 1.5. So a win is a win, Dan, as they say.
Indeed. A win's a win. We'll roll with that, and we'll just move on to the next one. We don't want to take too much credit for a victory there. Oklahoma City. This one feels like you could almost say a loss is a loss on this one. I had them going over. Russell Westbrook's injury at the beginning of the year obviously was a little bit of a ding. Paul George's injury late in the year was a little bit of a ding. But overall, this was a spot seemingly where the line was pretty damn close. 50.5. They got to 49 with that win on the last day. They had that big slump late in the season where they sort of fell apart. I don't know. I honestly thought that this was going to be, the opposite of Houston, where instead of, subtraction by addition, this was sort of an addition by subtraction thing, moving Jeremy Grant into the starting lineup, no Carmelo Anthony. I felt like the Thunder underachieved this year, but I also, Neil, need to listen to myself because I've been on so many shows where I've said this team is basically the most, like the narrowest band team in basketball because they have Russell Westbrook. They're always going to be within like 4 wins of every single year because everything they do revolves around one player, and that's just who he is. And, he's unbelievably exciting and an electrifying basketball player, but any team that he's on is going to have these limitations at the offensive end. I thought their defense would be better as the season went on. I thought Andre Robertson was going to be a key for them on the defensive side, and he never played a game. But I don't want to make excuses. I thought this was going to go over. I thought they would sneak into the 50s, and they got to 49. So, a pox on my house, I guess.
Yeah, I had them over as well. I thought they'd get in the 50s as well. I thought some of their additions were going to help them. Noel, I thought, might have a bigger impact this season. I know they got Patterson, which was hopefully going to be a stretch for them, which obviously did not work out at all. So yeah, these new pieces did not really help them win. And then it's just Russ's team as much as Paul George is a better player, like you said. So I don't even think Donovan can do anything about it. I think he's basically Russ tells him what to do at this point in terms of what his role is going to be. It's not the other way around. So you're right. Yep.
There you go. Spurs 43.5. This to me was just a Popovich wager. I actually had a pretty big bet on the over, and my explanation was mostly just that I didn't think they were going to miss the playoffs. Simple as that. I didn't overthink it. Sometimes it's better to just consider the team. The Spurs just win. They find a way to win every year until somebody proves me wrong on the San Antonio side. I'm not gonna fade them. That's it.
You didn't see Derek White being Victor Oladipo in the playoffs? You didn't see that happening?
I did not see that happening. I also thought they would have DeJounte Murray on the team this year.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Hey, I think this is where I have the shortest analysis. I know my analysis aren't long to begin with, but I just have "will find a way."
Yep,
that was my entire analysis.
100%, full on agreement with you on that. Sometimes you don't have to get too crazy. Clippers. This to me was also one of my largest bets. I was hard on the over. Their line was obscenely low at 35.5. I could not believe how low they set this number. This is a team that proved last year that they're going to fight the crap out of things. I didn't think they were going to get to 48 wins. I thought they'd get to about 500. But, the Patrick Beverley effect, he's the fire in their system. Gallo played, 25 games the previous year? I didn't know he was going to go for close to 70 this season, but even if he plays like 50 or 60, they're a team that adds a few wins. This one, I don't know. There was almost nothing that I looked at with this Clippers team that made me think they were going to go under until they traded away half their team at midseason, and even then they found a way to keep winning games. I mean, this is like this. They don't get much more telegraphed than this one.
Yeah, I took the over as well. Clearly not as bullish as you, but there's no way I could take the under. It just felt way too low for the team and the coach and how hard they were playing. And yeah, the Tobias Harris trade kind of threw me a little bit, but it didn't matter. I don't think it does matter with who he has on this team. I think Rivers is kind of like Popovich. He's just a very good coach and knows how to get guys to play hard and play well. So,
yep. And I mean, Patrick Beverley's never going to take a game off. So if you're on his team and he's going that hard, I think he's this weird inspiration for the guys around him. Kings was actually one of the very few wagers I didn't make. In fact, my analysis was I have no feel for this team. They won 27 games last year, and I have no idea how they should be this year. I think they might be kind of bad. I don't know. This was a zero confidence wager, and I think I just followed Brew, who told me to just play the under, and then they stomped on everybody. So I have nothing on this one. Zero. I have nothing.
I like to blame Aaron as well. Can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all Brew. It's you. It's your fault, Brew.
I went under only because they were so bad the year before. He played so many veterans, so many minutes, Jaeger, and so I did not see any of this coming, like the rotations, and of course the talent that went along with that. So I just went under only because Sacramento is one of those organizations that felt like it's okay to bet under on them when you're in doubt. But things may have changed up there. So,
Lakers, where were you on this one?
Oh, this was an easy under for me.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, just LeBron. The number baked in too many wins because of his name. So I was just going under because of that.
Yep, I as well. This is a weird one too, where right around the season win total time, the Lakers were trying to put out a weird narrative that they were being underrated, and I think people were buying into that because they are such a powerful franchise. So when the Lakers are all coming out saying, "Yeah, the world doesn't think we can do it this year," I'm like, nah, that's just not true, man. I know that everybody feels like they need added motivation in this day and age, but the world believes you will do it. You have LeBron and you're the Lakers. This number was way too high. That was an easy one. Minnesota. This to me was another under. I actually initially had the wrong number on this one. I thought I saw 47.5, and I put out a big under. And then I looked back, and someone told me it was 44.5, so I put out a smaller under. But it was an easy one as it turned out either way. My thought was that I thought they would deal with injuries this year. Jimmy Butler ended up getting traded. They ended up dealing with a massive injury to Rob Covington, who was sort of the engine after that trade happened. Andrew Wiggins just isn't that good. And Cat, while durable, needs help on the defensive side. And, when all those other guys went down, that was the end of it. I mean, they didn't get close to their number. 44.5 was the number. They won 36 games. A little bit of a stagnation syndrome thing there and locker room chemistry stuff. And then Thibodeau just broke all of his guys. So that was cool. That one, all you had to do was wager on injuries, and I think you were in okay shape.
Yeah, I mean, I wager on chemistry between the players and the coach, between the coach and the staff. And yeah, Wiggins, I don't think is unfortunately not going to develop into a great NBA player. So he's overvalued. And then Cat he's great offensively, but defensively needs much more help. And then I didn't know what was going to happen at the beginning of the season with Butler, how long he was going to be there. If they got into a hole pretty big to start off with, it would be hard to kind of crawl out of. So for me, it was all about those chemistry issues.
Grizzlies, I missed. I thought they were going to get over that 34.5. Obviously, I thought they were going to try to compete for a playoff spot when they went on that midseason losing streak and then decided to sell off pieces. That was kind of the end of that wager. They still got to within a game and a half, but the injury to Kyle Anderson, to me, was a big factor. They needed him. He was a guy that I thought was going to be a nice piece for them coming into this year. I thought Jaren Jackson Jr. was going to be better than he was, and obviously they shut him down for, what was it, like the last 6 or 7 weeks of the year. And then Conley was playing only intermittently after the All-Star break. So this is one that could have gone over if really only like one or two things had broken the right way, but they didn't. And so to me, this was one where I thought I took the side that had the bigger margin for error, but it just wasn't wide enough. And that's an L for your old pal, Danny Boy.
Hey, I'm going to join you with this one.
Oh, look at that.
As well. I went over as well. Yeah, the Gasol trade obviously hurt as well. And then, but this was really my way to honor my co-host, Adrian Benjamins. With Jaren Jackson Jr. just being, the second coming of Hakeem Olajuwon. So yeah. I thought I would just go with the over. I believe in Adrian, and JJJ would be Rookie of the Year. So,
what did you have on the New Orleans side?
New Orleans Pelicans. I had them going under. I totally saw this Anthony Davis drama coming. No, I don't. No, I just thought, this was subtraction by addition with Alfred Payton coming in. That was kind of one of the key things that they got me there. And then I think that was the main thing. They lost off. Who did they lose? I have lots of key players. I'm not sure who they lost in the offseason, but I believe they lost to someone.
Oddly enough, and it feels weird to say it because he was atrocious on his team this most recent season, but I thought Rajon Rondo was actually pretty helpful for them the previous year.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Because he definitely was good on that team last year.
He was.
So
he plays no defense, but he was on a team where he could get away with it because Drew Holiday and AD were two of the best defenders in the NBA, whereas if he did that same crap on the Lakers, which he did, there was nobody behind him to cover for it. So it was like straight to the rim, easy layup in LA, where with New Orleans, there were just other guys around that could sort of cover up his deficiencies. To me, this one was, again, about betting on the margin for error side. And for New Orleans to get over 45.5 wins, they needed Anthony Davis to play in basically every game this year. 75 or more, I think, was the number that I came up with. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, look, if this dude misses 7 games, they're not going to get to that number. And obviously after the drama, they shut him down effectively, and he ended up playing in 56 games. So they got nowhere near the mark. And that's why sometimes you just want to go with the one that has the margin for error. You needed a lot of things to go right for New Orleans to get over this thing, and you really only needed one thing to go wrong for them to end up under. And a few things went wrong. So it ended up way, way, way under. Did you have more thoughts? It sounded like you had something else to add on that one.
No, I did not. I just, I agree with your margin of error. It's not something I thought a lot about when making these bets, but that's something to keep in mind as I go forward for next season.
Dallas was a team where I also had zero confidence in the wager, but it was like a 0.5, where the Kings were officially like, I honestly have no idea what's going to happen with this team. The Mavericks, I had almost no confidence, but I had a thought, and they were one of those teams, Neil, you and I talked about as Pythagorean win totals. They should have been a lot higher the previous year. And then they obviously added some pieces. They brought in DeAndre Jordan, and then Luka Doncic was their big rookie selection. So they were expected to be more like in that 33 to 35 range, which is right around the number. I did take the under with my world's tiniest confidence wager, and it worked, but likely only because they traded away half their roster and then shut down Kristaps Porzingis after acquiring him. So maybe I'll call this like a super lucky tiny win for me, but you know what? A win's a win, so I'll take it.
And excuse me, and a loss is a loss. So yeah, I went under on this. I went over on this one, and I thought they were going to compete. I didn't know what their situation was with once they traded their draft pick. I didn't think they'd have any incentive to tank. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And I thought they would really just, after having that dismal year before, I didn't think Cuban would want to have 2 bad seasons in a row, but I guess maybe that is just stupid thinking. So it did not work out for me.
No, I mean, listen, there's not much of an argument on this one. This was one where the number was right. They had a lot of goofy things go on, and if they don't shut down half their team, maybe they sneak over the number. They were so close in so many respects that I don't know that we should pull too much away from this particular result, is basically what I'm saying there. I mean, we can take the L or the W or whatever it happens to be, but in terms of finding lessons in things. I think that's part of why we're looking back on stuff. There isn't really much there. This is a team that changed their whole roster makeup and changed their entire philosophy in February, and it obviously altered how the stretch one went. Phoenix, the very last team we're going to cover. This is so weird. Neil, why on earth was this number up near 30 this year? What the hell was that?
Yeah, this was one of those when you said the line does not make sense. What do you do? But I had to go under. I didn't see any reason they would. Going back to your margin of error, everything had to go right for them to get this many wins. With a new coach, first time coaching in the NBA, a lot of young players having big roles.
Who's already been fired, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's no longer coaching the NBA. I just thought there's no way they would get there, and the Western Conference is just ridiculously stacked. So I didn't think they could get to 20. I thought they were going to get around 22 to 23 wins. So
yeah, it's hard to only win 19 games in the NBA, and Phoenix managed to do it. So congratulations to the Phoenix Suns, who fired their coach because somehow he was the problem this last year. It wasn't the fact that Devin Booker can't stay healthy. DeAndre Ayton doesn't know how to play defense yet. TJ Warren basically got shut down. Nobody really knows what the hell happened on that front. The only time they were winning games is when they were actually playing their bench, and they clearly didn't want to. So, I mean, I know that the tank was a little bit less pronounced because you had 3 or 4 teams all near the bottom that were basically just vying for, odds of ending up with like the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th pick. But there's still, when you're a terrible team, there's sort of no point in trying to get to the 30-win mark, although I guess the Atlanta Hawks might argue otherwise. And Phoenix was just, like, they've shown nothing to indicate that they should have been able to win more games to this point. I thought Trevor Ariza might actually help them a little bit, at least in terms of mentality, and then they immediately traded him. So that didn't really matter at all. And he wasn't a good fit to begin with because they were asking him to do more stuff with the basketball because they don't have a point guard on that team. And that's going to kill them until they can figure out some way to get Devin Booker off the dribbling the air out of the ball side of things. And he's an elite scorer. There's no question about that. But his decision-making is fetid at best. And that assist-to-turnover ratio for old Devin Booker is also not particularly strong. I think it was like 6.5 to 4. That's a lot of turnovers for 6.5 assists per ball game. You got to get that sorted out. But it's not all on him because the options around him are like really, really bad. I'm trying to think of the kind way to put it. I mean, there are some games where that stretch he went on where he was scoring 55 points a game for a week. The guys that he was playing with were just embarrassingly bad. And to think that this team was going to make a leap to 30 wins was insanity. And that, Neil, is our Western Conference review. I'm just trying to think of a couple of the lessons to take away from this. I think one you mentioned was the margin for error stuff that I brought up. Some is narrative related. I'm excited to see what the expectations are for some of these teams going into next year.
Yeah, I have to go back. As far as lessons learned, I think that margin of error is my big takeaway. That's not something I thought about too much this past season. I was thinking more of just like the fundamentals of the team and then the changes and then obviously expectations versus what might be reality, like with LeBron coming in. I'll have to think about it in terms of more lessons than that. But, it's good to have a good first year doing this. Hopefully it's not just beginner's luck. So we'll see.
Nah, I don't think it is. I think, if you watch enough basketball and you understand the way that teams fluctuate and what certain things actually mean in reality, season win totals are very, very beatable numbers almost every year. And there will obviously be exceptions to that rule, but this is, understanding what teams are trying to do is a big part of this. And that's something that people that pay attention every year have a massive leg up on that front. So I think this is a beatable thing, and you and I will keep talking about it, and I think this will be a lot of fun going into next year as well. My lesson, and then I'm going to stop talking for multiple hours here, and so people don't have to listen to me anymore. My lesson actually goes back to our discussion from last week, and that was my expectation. I waited the Cavaliers is actually the team I'm going to build this off of. I weighted, not W-A-I-T, W-E-I-G-H-T. I weighted their desire to prove themselves in a non-LeBron atmosphere higher than the desires of the front office to have a great draft pick. And in normal circumstance, I think we've seen, Neil, so many examples lately of teams kind of doing stupid things for their own betterment perspective for the sake of pleasing a fan base, that to see a team in Cleveland that actually did the right thing. They pre-tanked this year. They piled up losses early so that they could give their fan base something to cheer about over the last month and a half of the season, was kind of brilliant in its simplicity. It was, we got off to a rough start, so we're going to, take a few months off. We're going to let the young guys learn on the fly. We're going to pile up losses through February, and then we're going to let Kevin Love come back. We're going to play some veterans. We're going to see if we can't maybe teach the young guys about a winning mentality. And obviously they lost their last 10 games of the year, but they did go on a little bit of a winning streak from late February to mid-March after it was already irrelevant that they were winning basketball games. I did not see that coming. I don't know if I should completely retool how I feel about terrible teams in the NBA, but it was something to keep in the back of my mind when teams have that prove-it mentality. Is it actually worth it? And looking at an example from another side now, and then I'll turn it back over to you, I thought the Pacers, after they lost Paul George, were in a big-time prove-it mentality, but the reason that worked is that they got a superstar back, a budding superstar. And so they actually had the pieces to prove to the world that they didn't need Paul George. Cavaliers didn't. They had Kevin Love and, the riffraff. So that's something to me that I think I need to be a little bit more cognizant of going into next year.
Yeah, Cleveland's a unique situation because they've proven in the past they're willing to tank year after year. And then when they don't have LeBron, and then there's no expectations, I think, in that city for much coming into the season. So from a fan base perspective, as far as other narratives of how to read into it, that's something I'm still trying to understand. When am I just making things up versus when is actually a real narrative? So it's a challenge, but if I can be right more than 52.4% of the time, I guess I'll go with it. So
that's right, baby. That's right, baby. Neil is accounting for the VIG, by the way, for those of you that are tuning in at 2.4%. You got to get up and over that mark. The great Neil Rochlani, co-host with the Mo-host. Thank you for allowing me to only talk 40% as much as I normally do.
Oh gosh, thank you for not talking on me. I appreciate it. Yeah,
I thought you were just going to say thank you for not talking.
No.
Neil, you want to take us out? You know what? Let me tell everybody what's coming up over the rest of the week, and then I'll let you take us out on this thing because I am cooked, man. I'm going to go bathe my throat in warm tea, which I know sounds very sensual to all those listening in. Tomorrow I'll be with Brandon Marcus. We'll talk a bit more about lessons learned from a season gone by. Hey, did you and Adrian switch Thursday and Friday?
I believe so.
Okay, so that means you're now Thursday. Am I getting that right?
That's correct.
I should have just let you do the whole thing to wrap this thing up. Are you back with Josh this week, or are you gonna pick a new one from the stable?
I have not decided.
Oh,
do you have any thoughts?
The world is your oyster, Neil.
The world is my oyster. Yeah.
Neil has this intense stable of fantastic stallions just ready to go. All you got to do is open up one of the doors, and out bursts a wild horse to join you on the Thursday show. Adrian and Coach will be finishing up the week on Friday. I apologize to everyone for having to listen to me today, but hopefully things will be better by tomorrow. I make no promises. This is a very weird illness, and luckily I can laugh at myself because I know I sound like a total dweeb. And thank you to everybody for dealing with it. Neil, take us home.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the Fantasy NBA today. Wish Dan well on his speedy recovery, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.